Hi, everybody. It's so nice to be here today at Women in Tech, talking about the world in 2030. And I can tell you that our vision is that it's going to be intelligent, connected, and sustainable. Now, I'm going to take you on a little bit of a journey on how this will actually happen. And to explain a little bit about where I come from and what the history of this worldview is, I will take you to my mother organization, that is Ericsson Research. Ericsson Research is a fantastic organization with phenomenal technological brilliance. We are a global organization, and we actually stand for most of Ericsson's patent base, but also all of the Gs. We have done 2G, 3G, 4G, 5G, and now when the world is talking about 6G, we are thinking about 6G and what that is going to be. The organization that I am heading up is called Consumer and Industry Lab, and we have actually been around for 25 years. And we used to research consumers very much, and then we were called Consumer Lab, and each year, for 25 years now, we have been out interviewing people in over 40 countries in the world, and the material that we actually gather in statistically represent over 1.1 billion people in the world. So it's a very big research database. And this is only the survey materials that we produce. We also follow what people actually do by analyzing big data, and we also do a lot of qualitative studies and other things. At Industry Lab, we go into and investigate what impact technology can have on different industries, but also which effect it has on sustainability in society. And this is, of course, extremely important for us. Now, just to take you a little bit to where we are today, I want to turn to this fantastic device. I think it's maybe one of the dearest things that we have, a thing that we love to hate. And I think that most of us actually check this at least hundreds of times a day, maybe even thousands. And I usually say that the swipe is actually perhaps the most important movement in the world today, because this is how we access information, it's how we take decisions, both as consumers, but also as B2B people. Moreover, we are so in love with our smartphones that it's difficult to imagine another future ahead of us that is perhaps not based on this little device. And this device was actually very much driving the 4G type of digitalization that we have seen. The Ubers, the application economy, the Airbnbs, and so forth. But now we are actually about to enter a new paradigm. What is that then? Well, to answer this question, we turn to all of the brilliant tech minds that we have at Ericsson Research, and we crowdsourced our new strategy. And here, we actually derived 10 technological forces that we think are important to actually drive exponential change during the next 10 years. And you see a lot of cool names here. However, it's not one of these trends that are important, like AI or new computing paradigms like quantum computing and so on. But it's actually the combination of different trends that will create this fantastic development. A development which my boss, Magnus Frodig, the head of Ericsson Research, says it's going to be exponential. However, this is a little bit kind of hard to understand still, right? What world will this actually create? So in order to actually fix that, we went to the crowd again, and we asked them to create what we call technology journeys. These are scenarios. They are not predictions, but scenarios of a probable tech future and what world that may create by 2030. We might have 6G then, who knows? However, the first 4 of these 8 journeys actually describe what kind of world we will live in. And these scenarios, they are the Internet of Senses, a sustainable world, the digital representation type of world, and also connected intelligence machine. And I will actually focus on one of these journeys today, the Internet of Senses. And yes, you are correct. This is about digitalizing all of our 5 senses, including touch, taste, and smell, and also brain-computer interface. What would the world look like with the Internet of Senses? Let's have a look. Play the movie, please. The Internet of Senses, quite mind-blowing, right? And I think most of you will say also, but isn't it also a bit scary? And yes, it can be scary. Of course, technology always have 2 sides, and that's why it's really important that we develop technology for good. Now, how is all this going to start? Well, when it comes to 5G, it's going to start in enterprises and industries. This is actually a slide of deploying, demonstrating all the fields where 5G will actually enable new revenue opportunities in different business sectors and industries. And what I want you to take away from this slide is not the numbers, it's not the thing here, but it's that it's affecting all industries. And that's why we are talking about a paradigmatic shift. To give a couple of concrete examples of what this could look like, I will take you to a couple of examples from the Ericsson research industry collaborations. Now, the water thing here, which you see peeling down on a big wheel, it's actually called a blisk. And by connecting the process here, you are actually able to save a lot of money every year due to decreased scrapping costs. Also, it saves a lot of carbon emissions every year. And this is only one little piece in the whole factory automation line. So you can imagine if we connect more and more things, this will become exponential. On the right-hand side, you see an example from a mine. Here we actually did much more than the example illustrated below. We actually created an AR visualization of the mine. We created sensors that could sense like the air quality in the mine after a blast, which enables people to go down much faster and in a safe environment. So the potential of actually connecting our enterprises and an industry in new ways are really mind-blowing. But moreover, the effect of actually using digital technology can actually help the transformation to a more sustainable society. So at my unit, we are part in driving research called the Climate Exponential Roadmap that we published together with the NGO Future Earth. And just by applying the technology that we have today, we could actually reduce global carbon emissions across industries by 15% by 2030. In the second version of this research that we released, we listed 36 actions that you can take across industries to actually reach the goal to halve carbon emissions by 2030. Now, that is very impressive. So, what I think is really interesting is that right now we are in the time of the pandemic. And I think that the real big thing with the pandemic is that it has actually opened up our eyes to how important connectivity is to hold our everyday lives together in a crisis like this. And when we started measuring this on a global level, we could see that this was true all across the globe. 9 out of 10 consumers have increased their digital activities, and many have started to do new behaviors that they never did before the pandemic. Also, the importance of actually having resilient networks were clear to 3 out of 4 consumers around the globe. Because this is really what made a difference for the impact of the COVID-19 situation in their everyday life. And a lot of these effects is actually boosting our readiness to accept new types of digital transformation. 6 out of 10 actually want autonomous commerce, where you get automated deliveries to your home by drones and so on. And they also want automated purchases, which is really fun, I think. Of course, working from home has become the new normal. And most consumers think that this will actually persist also after the pandemic. And moreover, new ways of interacting has actually boosted the way we want to interact with institutions and public service. So for instance, in just the US alone, the consumers actually expect digital consultations with doctors to increase 6-fold this year. Now, I also think that the pandemic has really changed our perception about the screen-based world. Because no matter how fun it is, to have a Teams meeting and meet like that, it's not like meeting in the real world, right? And in my unit, we have actually started to hold our team meetings in VR and do ID workshops in VR and so on. And it makes an incredible difference for the social interactions. And this is actually something that we also see among consumers. 7 out of 10 actually see that the new status symbols will actually be in VR digital objects and not in material goods. And that is not the entire consumer base, but those who are actually already in the VR world. So a little bit of brasklapp on that. Now, the film you saw before was our first measurement of the Internet of Senses among early adopter consumers around the world. This slide is actually made 1 year later, where we interviewed business-to-business people about the Internet of Senses. And although the samples are not entirely comparable, because here we have white-collar people, and in the other one we had a little bit of a different selection. We made it as comparable as possible. And the takeaway of this is that when we measure Internet of Senses, different services and applications, you can see the big jump in readiness that the pandemic has created. So we are really expecting a shift here. So, what will be the new killer apps with 5G and moving into 6G? At Consumer and Industry Lab, we believe a lot in 3D internet and in mixed reality services. And to follow this, we have created the 5G Startup Program that actually are early startups building augmented reality services, getting the devices there in place and so on, that can capitalize on this. And I wanted to show you a couple of examples of what this really could be. So, for instance, in Hong Kong, there is a service already today where you can go out with your 5G phone, lift it up like this, and get commercial offerings in AR directly to your phone. Marketing executives usually say that 50% of their marketing budget is wasted. But the problem is they don't know which half. Think, what if we could actually create a totally traceable world here, where you could actually really trace for real where your money is going? What are we waiting for this world to happen? Well, a lot of us are waiting for the really cool, new, high form factor glasses. And these glasses are actually already out in the market in Korea, which is an early market when it comes to 5G. But they are still connected to your phone. And when these glasses will come out and be mass market, everybody's of course waiting for that Apple XR glass that will be high form factor and so on and so on. This is where, of course, the big thing will be. But the first versions of this will probably have a little bit of a crappy experience because the networks and the cloud edge computing that is enabling the good experience in glasses like this will not be there for some years to come. Another really cool device that we have at our XR lab at Ericsson Research is this 360 camera that you can put around your neck and film everything you do in 360. What if social media would actually become 360 video-based? Interesting question, isn't it? So, I think it's really interesting to follow this development because it will be a development that will happen in a few steps. It won't happen overnight. For this whole 3D world and 5G-enabled world to happen, we will need the devices in place, we will need the networks in place, we will need the cloud edge computing thing, we'll need spatial mapping. A lot of new things will have to come in place, and we need the devices. And today, they look like this, a little bit. It's an old version, I know, but they are very bulky and so on. And of course, you know, when it comes to the new devices, we still have a lot of technical development to do. And we think that the first standalone versions of these glasses will come approximately in 2024, 2023 maybe, with standalone connectivity. However, I think it's really smart to start to prepare for this world right now, because we want to look what happens next, what happens in the next digital paradigm shift, because this will actually drive exponential innovation in the types of services that we can use, how we can apply it to business, and how we can reinvent ourselves. And for you who says that it's a really long way to go, I just want to take you back in history. I don't know how many of you recognize this. This is the Ericsson hotline. You have this little briefcase here that you carried, and you could, in the very first version of this, you actually had to sell both the phone number and the phone when you changed the phone. And we have come a long way from this, haven't we? But this lovely device that we have in our pockets, it is actually not really the optimal device, I would say. For a long time, I actually thought about this as how can we invent something better than a smartphone? It has everything. We can turn it off and on, we can put it in our pocket and do everything like this. But it has actually become quite old. It was in 2007 that it first came, so maybe we are starting to be prepared for a new reality. And that is true, at least if you ask the consumers in the world. They want new services and they want 5G, provided that they get a really good experience from the network, but also the really cool new services and applications out there. So, with this, I want to say that there is no time to waste. It's really about going and grabbing the future and think about how can this actually change your industry, your company, and your everyday life. Thank you very much.